What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. There's actually a lot of stuff going on in the gaming world today, including a new update for the Nintendo Switch that had an interesting side effect of allowing a GameCube controller to work with it, which is kind of cool. And then we also found out that .hack may actually be making the jump to the Western audience. So let's get right into it. First thing we're going to talk about today, though, is an interesting analysis that Digital Foundry did of Mario Odyssey. Now, of course, we saw all the footage from E3 several times. Everyone who went there pretty much stood in line for a while to play the game, and it looked very good. But of course, Digital Foundry did their usual thing where they dive into like resolution, frame rate, and everything, and they gave us an idea of how that build was playing. Now, I want to stress this, that could be an early build, much like they said, so we don't know how the final product will be, but we at least know exactly what resolution and frame rate this build at E3 was running. Now, according to Digital Foundry's video, Mario Odyssey was running at 720p and capped at 60 frames per second, and for the most part, it sat at 60 frames pretty much all the time. There were some interesting points in New Donk City where it would drop down for a second or two, but for the most part, it was pretty much a smooth experience at 60 frames across the board. Even in the standard desert level that they were running through, that ran probably the best. That was perfect. New Donk City seemed to have a lot more going on, and they showed off some interesting tricks that Nintendo and the creative team there were using to get that 60 frames perfect. They had things like off in the distance, some of the people walking around would be 2D models, and then as you got closer, they would turn into their standard 3D models. And it was some cool ideas that they went through. Most of the guys at Nintendo who are programming these things come up with some really cool ideas to keep the frame rate at an acceptable rate. Now, we saw Mario Kart, for example, where they have, if you're doing 4-player split screen action, they'll have 60 frames across, but they'll only have each side refreshing individually, so it's technically 30 frames per second there. And so they have some pretty cool techniques to make this work. And overall, I'm happy with the resolution being 720p if that means we get 60 frames per second. Sometimes, especially with a game like Mario, where it looks like to me a serious platformer, obviously, I'd rather have the frame rate and upscale from 720p. That's me, though. And it's also very possible that as we get closer to release date and the final product, it could be something like where it's 900p upscaled instead. I don't think they'll get the full 1080p if they were only showing 720p there. However, we have heard that apparently Splatoon 2 is going to be pushed to 1080p now, so who knows at this point what they'll be doing now that they have a few months before it has to be shipped out. Maybe they can make some improvements and fix that up. We also don't know how old that build was, because it's not like that build they put there was made like 2 days before or something. That could have been a build that was a month or two old, and they had to get it programmed and designed for the E3 demo. But we'll see when it comes out. At least we know right now, yes, it's 60 frames. It was running at 720p. It looked great, though. Everyone who played it said they had a lot of fun, and it controlled well. And that's the biggest thing, because a game like Mario, you need those really tight controls. Everyone who played it said it was a blast. It controlled well, and we'll have a lot of fun when it comes out either way, whether it's 720p, 900p, 1080p. It's Mario. We're going to have fun. Next up, guys, is .hack GU. They are coming out with a remaster, so it's going to be all the GU games in one package, and it's coming out for the PS4 and the PC. Now, we did see this happen over in the East, in Japan, where they were going to release it, and a lot of people were kind of frustrated because it looked like it wasn't going to be coming over here initially. But after seeing a trademark be filed for the US, for example, and now they've come out and said it is coming, it's going to be completely localized, and it's going to be here sooner than you think. It's actually going to be showing up here in late 2017, not 2018. And this is great because, one, there's a lot of people who have not played the Volume 1, 2, or 3 on the PS2, and two, those games are actually pretty hard to find right now. You have to kind of jump through some hoops to get a hold of all three of them. In this case, we'll be able to pop it into our PS4 or download it on your PC, because they did say there will be a physical release even on the PS4. I'll be curious to see what they do with that, if they add anything extra to it. But you'll be able to just go ahead, play it on your PS4 or your PC at 60 frames per second, 1080p. They're going to also balance out any gameplay issues or anything that they see there, so it won't be exactly like the original. I'm sure people will do a lot of side-by-side comparisons trying to see what exactly they changed here. But the big thing is, it's coming over. It's great because a lot of people were thinking it wouldn't, and now anyone who's a fan of the .hack series, or people who want to just check it out, because they keep hearing people talk about it, but then you go online and you see kind of the prices for some of them, how hard it is to find even in person, and now you'll be able to buy it on retail store shelves, or download it, I assume, on Steam, and you can just play it. So this is great. Also, all three of them being in one. If you don't know about .hack, usually you can take your one character you make through all the different games, all the volumes, and kind of build them up throughout the story. So very exciting to see this. No actual date. We just know late 2017 in the United States and in Europe. We also got a look at Crytek's new project. Remember how they've been talking about for a while? They've been working on a new IP at this point, some new project that they keep kind of talking about in the background. Well, we got a good look at it on YouTube. They actually posted a full video for what looks to be a PvP Monster Hunter type game. It's kind of interesting. So the game is called Hunt Showdown. They showed pre-alpha footage of what appeared to be two players kind of playing together against other players in the map. They were hunting down what they've said are like kind of like horror type monster beasts. They showed them fighting a massive spider that was scurrying all over the place. And then of course, while they're running through, they also see other players apparently fighting against each other. It's almost like they throw everyone into kind of an arena that's a very large map, and they give you basically a monster at a time to hunt. This is what we've gathered from this pre-alpha footage. They'll give us more information down the road. And then everyone just kind of tries to hunt the monsters down that they're given while the other players try to stop them. And it looks like whoever finishes killing the monsters that they're given, or I guess the other players enough times or something, you win. It looked like they were running to an extraction point, though, after killing the final spider that they were supposed to. So, more than likely, you are tasked to fight and kill the monsters in a certain amount of time, and then you extract out of there. I assume the team that does that wins. The game itself looks good. I mean, the visuals look great. It's Crytek. It's what you'd expect. The lighting looks great. Overall, it plays like a standard first-person shooter with some added elements where they're throwing flares around, they're lighting stuff on fire, and it looks like it'll be fun. I would like to see a little more with this game. It is pre-alpha footage. It's about 10 minutes or so they showed us some, but not a lot. We'll just have to see where this project goes. Keep in mind, Crytek is having a lot of problems behind the scenes as well, so I hope that they're not being, I don't want to say bottlenecked, but kind of stifled here with their creativity if they have money issues going forward, or maybe they had to cut people out of this project. Again, we'll see what happens. As far as we can tell right now, it is only for the PC. No talks about consoles at all, although they have kind of alluded to, well, you know, we'll look at the consoles if it's something we want to do, but maybe they want to stick with PC for now with the freedom that they can do there, and obviously the ease of delivery. They don't have to make a physical version and ship it out. It's pretty much widely accepted now that if you put it out on Steam, it's digital. And the last bit of news is pretty big. So the Nintendo Switch had a big update, probably the biggest update it's had since launch, and this now pushes it up to version 3.0, and it added a ton of stuff, some interesting, some very interesting, some stuff people really figured out playing around with it. But let's quickly talk about some of the big things. There's some little ones too, like stability updates, things like that. But let's talk about some of the big things that happened here. So it seems like now they made a way for you to add friends from your Nintendo 3DS, Wii U friends list. You can receive notifications when they go online. And you can also register channels to receive news for specific games that maybe you're interested in more so than others. You don't want to get news updates for every single thing on the marketplace, but maybe there's one particular game, like let's say Mario Odyssey. You can register just to get news updates from that one game. That is a really cool idea. That way you don't have to open the floodgates to get updates about maybe one game you want. Now there are also some more useful updates as well, including a really cool one, which is you can find a paired controller that maybe got lost in the living room or something. Maybe it's under a couch cushion, or somebody put it down when you had a bunch of people over and it got like hidden underneath something, or it's up on a shelf. What it will do is you press an option on the Switch and it will start to vibrate the controller that is hiding from you. So it'll kind of light up and vibrate, and it'll tell you where it is, which is a cool idea. I like that, because I'm sure some people, maybe not myself, but others have gotten into a point where they don't know where one of the Joy-Cons are, and you're looking and tearing the place up. You can just hit a button on there. It's almost like we're used to with like wireless phones, landlines, where you hit a button and it'll kind of call it. This, I assume, I haven't tried it too much myself. I assume this means that the Joy-Con part has to actually be on, so it has not timed out yet, but I guess you can only see it connected anyway if it's on, as opposed to not being on and it won't show up on the Switch. They also added some new control schemes, including using a keyboard straight up whenever the keyboard is on screen. That's great for people who want to type stuff in very quickly. I know typing in your credit card info was such a pain because you had to do it over and over again. Fortunately, you can store it now, but of course this is going to be more for when the MMO games like Dragon Quest X and stuff start showing up on the system. You want a keyboard, obviously, for that. You're not going to spend 5 minutes typing out a few words with the buttons and a D-pad. They also added the functionality of plugging in your Pro controller that you get, and it'll function just through the wire to eliminate any wireless lag that, while I don't really notice it, I know some people who play professionally do. There's also an option, which is very interesting, to update controllers. So I assume they'll be putting out things like firmware and stuff, and you can essentially tell the system, hey, update these controllers, and I guess you get whatever the latest firmware is for your controller. I'd be curious to see how they use that in the future. Maybe there will be, I don't know, extra functions added or just bugs kind of fixed on these controllers as they go along. They also managed to fix an issue with the system that a lot of people were reporting, where it would kind of wake up the TV from sleep, right? And it'll kind of make it jump to an HDMI port that the Switch is plugged into just randomly. I know Samsung TVs were having a real problem with this. Samsung kind of put out an update. It looks like Nintendo is just tackling this at a system level. They have just added a system stability update for that problem. So it shouldn't be waking up your TV out of sleep anymore, just randomly when it wants to, which is a good move by Nintendo, because that is something people are complaining about. I guess they heard it and they fixed it. Now, the interesting thing about this update, where there's one thing that kind of caught some people off guard, because of course when there's an update, you start testing out a bunch of different features to see what exactly has changed. And a lot of people found that randomly, the Pokken Tournament controller started working. Now, the assumption here, obviously, is that the Pokken Tournament controller is now put into play because Pokken Tournament DX is coming out for the Switch. So, of course, maybe you want to use the controller, which, by the way, has become pretty cheap over at GameStop from what I've seen. It's like $10 to $15. So if you do want that controller, you can go pick it up. The D-pad's pretty nice on it. And then we started to find out that if you plug in the Mayflash GameCube adapter, specifically the Mayflash one, not the actual Nintendo one, it will work. It will detect a GameCube controller, and it will function in games like Tetris. What we're finding out right now, though, is that it only detects one controller. If you plug it into any other ports, it will find it as that same controller. So it doesn't see the GameCube adapter for Mayflash as a GameCube adapter. It sees it as a controller. So the game controller plugged into the number one, controller port 1 will function the same as controller port 3, 4, 2. If you plug all of them in, they all control the same player slot, so it's kind of funny. And in this case, the D-pad, for example, that you would normally use functions on the analog stick. So it sees the analog stick as D-pad inputs, which means it's probably seeing this GameCube adapter with the GameCube controller plugged in, much like it sees the Pokken Tournament controller. So no, they have not technically added, say, GameCube controller support. This is just an interesting side effect that has just happened with this update. I guess it just can't tell the difference between a GameCube plugged into the adapter, plugged into the system, from the Pokken Tournament controller, which is good or bad. I don't know. I mean, I guess you can now just use a GameCube controller in that way. From what we're seeing, it doesn't work the best. It works with like Tetris. Doesn't work with Zelda very well, but it's interesting to see that you can now do that if you have a Mayflash adapter. I am waiting for the day that they go, yep, it just works fine. You can now plug in any GameCube adapter and use your GameCube controllers. Oh, and Smash is right around the corner. That's the hope here, and we'll just wait and see. It does look like these updates, we didn't hear anything about this update until now, and the system has actually improved greatly from this one update. So who knows what happens going forward with more updates. Apparently they can just drop it at any time, and then there's functionality added all over the place. So great on Nintendo for this update. I think it was awesome. The other nice thing I liked is I didn't have to download it, because when I came downstairs, for example, it was already downloaded. Just asked if I wanted to update it, and it took like 10 seconds to update. So I'm liking the passive functions of the Switch as well. I think they obviously work well with updates. And that's it for Newswave today, guys. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me think about anything we talked about today, whether it is the Dot Hack remaster. Maybe you're a big Dot Hack fan and you are excited that it is coming over late 2017, by the way. We're not waiting until next year, which is awesome. Let me know what you think about the new update that came out for the Switch. Maybe there are some features in there that you're really excited about, and you're happy that it seems like they can kind of add a ton of functionality in what seemed to be kind of a smaller update out of nowhere. That's it for now, guys. I will see you next time.